Exploring the plays of Alistair McDowall. The first X pops up on page 120. By the bottom of page 126 of the script for Alistair McDowall's 2016 play titled simply X, it's the only letter in sight. Pages 127, 128, and 129 are covered exclusively with X's. Those reading along with McDowall from his early works, building up to this breakdown of language, have been primed for this. It's not a stunt a first-time playwright can pull off. Reading Alistair McDowall on the page without having seen the playwright's work on the stage is not ideal, but it's how he himself discovered new drama, unearthing Sarah Cain's Blasted in the library at age 14 after being handed an excerpt from 448 Psychosis one day. This exploration will focus on three multi-character scripts: Brilliant Adventures, Pomona, and the most recent X. Born and raised in northeast England, McDowall didn't experience much theater in Great Britain growing up. He initially wanted to be a filmmaker, but without the money for a camera, he turned to drama for its accessibility, the freedom to break rules of expectation and tradition and do whatever he wanted to do on the stage kept him in drama. He wrote his first play about being in a band at age 16 and went on to write close to a play a month for the next 2 years. He continued to focus on playwriting and theatrical production at the University of Manchester and then in fringe theaters. When his 2011 play Brilliant Adventures received a Bruntwood Prize and was subsequently produced by Royal Court Theatre, people began to pay attention. Playwright Simon Stevens would call him the most exciting playwright to emerge out of the English theatre in the past 5 years. A discussion of McDowall might most logically begin with genre. This is a short video featuring McDowall talking about his play Brilliant Adventures.
It's set on a kind of near abandoned housing estate in Middlesbrough, and the main character is called Luke, and he is kind of a scientific genius. The play basically focuses on the fact that he has created this incredible invention which soon kind of exacerbates basically all the tensions that are already in the estate. And I'd always had this idea of this weird science fiction, time travel-y kind of play. But once I had that, I knew I wanted to write a play about brothers. So the central brother relationship is absolutely core to the play. That's absolutely central to it. And I also wanted to write kind of a sad play. And I think, despite the fact that I would class it as a comedy, it has a kind of quite a thick vein of sadness about it. So I think it's less a play about escape and more a play about missed opportunity and realisation, I think, or lack of realisation. It's kind of, I hope it's a kind of a brilliant mess, which I think is what the title kind of alludes to, I think.
His work is most frequently labeled dystopian and sci-fi. The word thriller is thrown in to explain edge-of-the-seat, chest-tightening sense of anticipation that his work often has. Critic Dominic Cavendish created the label sci-fi in his review of X. McDowall never lets us know what's coming. He mines his influences while simultaneously subverting our expectations. Brilliant Adventures might be a gritty housing project drama were it not for the time machine. We know something's up already by page 9. Enter Rob on a dog lead. He has the man, a wild-looking middle-aged man. The man walks on all fours and is naked except for a filthy pair of shorts, a bum bag, some filthy socks, gloves, and a red scarf around his neck. During the following, Rob ties the man's lead to the doorknob and he scutters around a bit before settling on the floor. By page 28, the time machine has appeared. We're at first aghast to see Rob pulling the man with him like a human pet by rope around the neck. In time, we learn that this sickly addict is their father. Rob, oh, sorry about the spoilers. It's the only way to talk about it. Rob doesn't let him out of sight because he is caring for him and trying to protect him. By carefully administering his doses, he is preventing him from accidental overdose and keeping him alive. It is this heartbreakingly universal experience of familial love underneath McDowall's often shocking and otherworldly fiction that takes his work to the next level. That these two things can be mixed together at all requires a tender alchemy. McDowall never talks down to the audience, but makes them part of the joke. Like Charlie and Pomona, who teaches Keaton how to play Dungeons and Dragons, the playwright provides multiple entry points to his audience. The worlds he depicts are not safe, but we are invited safe entry into them. Here we have a clip from Pomona. This is a trailer. It's a really good, gives you an idea of the mood of the play, I think. Among the themes that reoccur in McDowall's work is that of economic inequality and how society places values on commodities. In Brilliant Adventures, Luke is offended by Ben's belief that everything is for sale. In Pomona, everyone is buying something and selling something, their integrity, their own bodies, infants. Pomona Island is an actual strip of wasteland in the center of Manchester that was once the site of a botanical garden and concert hall, zoo, and other recreations. It was converted into docks and was eventually abandoned altogether. McDowall uses it as a metaphor for all things in the world that we choose not to see, all the inequalities of globalization and all the sweatshops and hardships that prop up our lives, Matt Truman explains in Variety. Pomona is about the things we choose to ignore. The playwright has traced the lack of connection between his characters to David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest, in which the characters never seem to have a proper conversation but sort of monologue at each other. Mo says to Faye in Pomona's brothel, "I feel very disconnected because I don't touch people. I feel disconnected." It's easy to lose track of who's who in Pomona. The characters are what Mac Wellman would call non-Euclidean. McDowall named them after classic and silent comedy film stars to keep them straight in his mind. Mo is from the Three Stooges, Keaton as in Buster, Charlie Chaplin, Zeppo as in Marx. Their personalities vary, but both Zeppo in Pomona and Ben in Brilliant Adventures are characterized as property owners. More obvious inspirations include the Chultu mask that grabs our attention in Pomona's energized first scene. The creature originated in H.P. Lovecraft's short story, The Call of the Chultu. McDowall leaves him to solve Rubik's Cubes in the backseat of Zeppo's car with little further explanation. For as flamboyant as Zeppo's opening number is, he returns only once and in the form of a seagull. We might give Cain credit here for opening McDowall's eyes to the impossibility of the staging that theater allows. In his introduction of Cain's complete works, David Grieg writes, "Cain believed passionately that it was possible to imagine something, it was possible to represent it. By demanding an interventionist and radical approach from her directors, she was forcing them to go to the limits of their theatrical imagination, forcing them into poetic and expressionist solutions. Her stage imagery poses no problems for theater per se, only for a theater tied to journalistic naturalism. Nothing in a Cain play is any more bizarre than Shakespeare's directions at the end of The Winter's Tale. The statue comes to life." McDowall clearly follows her lead. Here's Phaedra by Sarah Cain. Hippolytus dies, a vulture descends and begins to eat his body. In Pomona, we have Mo stops breathing. The world falls around them. In X, the end of Act 1 is really amazing. We have Ray seeing a girl crawl backwards out of a cabinet into the room where her mouth should be. A large X is carved into her face. He takes a penknife from his pocket and flicks it open. He stabs brutally into his neck over and over again. That's just one bit. Luke in Brilliant Adventures has a stutter like Kate in Cain's Blasted. Central to Cain's play, Cleansed, is a sister looking for a lost brother. This is a plot detail that Grieg traces back to Twelfth Night. In Pomona, McDowall frames his story around Ollie's search for a missing sister, also named Ollie, who might not really exist. Luke exists simultaneously in two versions of himself in Brilliant Adventures with a little help from his time machine. In X, we meet old and young versions of Maddie, and at one point, we see both at the same time. Gilda is a daughter who loses a mother and becomes a mother who is eventually mothered by her own child. The plot of Pomona shifts back and forth in time. The final scene ends before the play begins. This nonlinear structure is a theatrical rarity. We know it exists and is possible, but it's so hard to pull off successfully without alienating audiences, and so few playwrights attempt it on a practical basis. Again, we might look at Carol Churchill, whose play Traps was said to be structured as if around a Mobius strip. And surely it's no coincidence that McDowall was thinking of the shape of the M60, a ringed road around Manchester, the heart of which Pomona Island is a hole at the center. Critics April DeAngelis, Michael Billington, and Alexis Sears all connected the astonishing breakdown of language in X to Churchill's play Blue Kettle, in which a sort of virus increasingly replaces select words in the character's speech with the words blue or kettle, and then finally fragments of those words until the language is incomprehensible and does not resemble communicable syntax. McDowall's formatting is rich with ellipses and overlapping fragments. Perhaps this is where Beckett is most clearly visible, not only in the rope around the man's neck in Brilliant Adventures of a la Palazzo and Lucky, or the waiting for a rescue that never comes in X's, but in so many silences. It's important to McDowall that the reading experience equal the stage experience. If the reader is not going to get a performance, they should have as similar a story experience as possible. If the pages full of X don't stop your heart the first time you page through the script, you probably have not read enough dull plays. Here's a taste of X. It's another trailer.